Hello and welcome to the Digital Validity channel. My name is Eric, and today I want to just briefly go over how to configure your Rippled server and where the rippled.cfg file lives on your Linux box. So let's start by going to our command line in Linux. We're going to change directories to cd/opt/ripple/etc. Let's look at what's in that directory by typing ls. So this is your Rippled configuration file. Now I'm not going to go into this file because I've made a lot of updates to this. So here's a copy of that file, but it's the default settings. So let's go to that file instead. But as I said, you want to update this file. So I'm going to type in nano ripple.cfg.dpkg dist. So there's a lot of content in this file. I don't think I can get through all this today, but feel free to go into your own and look through it. There is a lot of explanation on each configuration. If we page down, you'll see that it explains what each setting does. So the main settings, if you want to edit the configuration file, they're at the bottom of this page. Let's go all the way to the bottom. So here you can see things are uncommented. And above these settings is a description of what each setting means. Let me scroll up a little bit. So if you're a node, you're not going to touch any of this stuff. You can keep all this. But I want to show you here. This is the port that the nodes connect to sync with each other. So if you have a firewall, you may want to port forward and open this port 51235. Scroll down a little bit. Here is your node size. You'll most likely be updating this. By default, it's set to medium. If you're going to be using your server as a validator, you'll most likely update this to a large size or huge. The XRP Ledger website has all that information on their website here under docs. You're going to be updating this too, depending on the type of hard drive you have. There's two different database types. There's RocksDB and there's NewDB. Which is right here, NewDB. And the XRP Ledger site has those configurations. I'll show you that in a moment. Let's scroll down a little bit. You know, a lot of these things can be left untouched if you're just testing and you're just going to be a node. Yeah, you may not have to even touch any of these. Unless you want to update your right here, your online delete file, which basically means how many versions of the ledger you want to store on your Rippled node. So here it's showing 2,000 versions. So, you know, most people, if they're running a node, they may store 15 days to 30 days. Some people store the whole entire ledger history on their node. It all depends on how much hard drive space you have. But on the XRP Ledger website, it will show you here under Configure Online Deletion. It'll show you a chart. Capacity planning. So if you go down to the configuration steps. Decide how many ledger versions worth of history to store. You go to capacity planning. It even shows you here your node size setting depending on how much RAM you have. So here, like I said, if you have at least 32 gigs, you can set that node size value to huge. Okay, let me, where is the online deletion section? Here it is. So by default, the settings for online deletion is 2000, which means that's just 2 hours of ledger history. Depending on what database you choose to use, it'll require a certain amount of space. So, I mean, if you have at least a terabyte, you can store 90 days, and that would be 2,250,000 ledger versions. So if you're a node, you want to try to take advantage and store as many ledger versions as possible. Validators, they don't need to store that much ledger version history. But for a node, yes, you want to have a lot of the history. A good place to start, probably 14 days, 30 days. But I would read through all this to get familiarized with how much space you need. So if you're testing and then down the road you want to actually buy or build a server, then you could come to this page here and it'll determine how much space you need, how much RAM you need. Before I turned into a validator, I started my node I start storing at 30 days. Since I had a lot of RAM, I set my node size value to huge. So if we go up here, here's the node size setting. By default, it's medium. 32 gigs and over, you could set that to huge. Let's go back a page. And there's more settings here. Configure advisory deletion. So it'll explain what this setting means here. It's under your database setting here, NodeDB. Might have to page down a little bit, and it's here. I always set mine to 0. But here's the configuration for that, and it'll go into detail what that means. So if you set your advisory delete to 1, to run online deletion only when prompted. Right, so when you set your advisory deletion to 1, that means it'll keep running. It won't online delete automatically. So basically, your node is going to keep storing the ledger history until you tell it to delete. But I have mine set to 0, so it'll delete at 2000 versions, which is only 2 hours. That's the default setting. So if you have your setting for online deletion at let's go back to that page, capacity planning. If you have it set to 25,000 versions, so it'll store up to 1 day and delete once it hits 25,000. Now, don't forget, just remember, got to make sure you have enough space for all of this. I suggest getting 500 gigs to a terabyte to start off with. Let's see here. Now there's also another setting. You scroll down. Okay, so by default it doesn't have this setting here, but if you scroll up, I don't know if I could find it. So here, it's called IPs fixed. It's a list of IP addresses or host names to which Rippled should always attempt to maintain peer connections with. So I use this setting when I want to connect to certain nodes, like if I want to specify certain nodes to connect to. Otherwise, it'll just connect to random nodes. So basically, you go down to the bottom here if you want to add this configuration, because by default it's not in this file. So you're going to add it at the bottom. That doesn't matter where you add it. It's going to be IPS_fixed. So below this, you're going to type in the IP address and then the port number, which is 51235. So to find those nodes that you want to connect to, this is what I do. I go to my browser, I go to Bithomp, and I go to the nodes list. Now, in my previous video, I told you about the in and out connections, the incoming and outgoing connections. When I click on this top header here, I can sort. So I want to click on the incoming connections of all these nodes here, and I want to sort by incoming connections. So I click on that. Now these are the nodes that I can see that have a lot of connections to. So other nodes and validators are connecting to these nodes here. So now that you've sorted based on incoming connections, you can take one of these IP addresses. Oh, also, I want to look at the uptime. I want to make sure that these nodes have a high uptime. So here's a good one. This node's been up and running for a month and has a lot of incoming connections. So I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to copy it. And I want to go to whatismyipaddress.com. I'm going to paste it here. And I'm going to look up that IP address. And this is a good website because it gives you information on that IP. So SoftLayer Technologies, I believe the parent company is IBM, and this looks like a web hosting service. So I'll copy that and I'll paste this IP address into my Ripple config file. Space 51235. Oh, what happened here? I think I have the num lock on. Oh no, what did I do? Oh, geez. 51235. So that's one IP address. I usually put about 3 to 5 IP addresses in here. So again, I'll go back to Bithomp. I'll pick another one that has a high uptime and a lot of incoming connections. So this one here, it's been up for 2 months. I like that one. I'm going to copy that. And go back to whatismyipaddress.com. And I'm going to look that up. And you'll see Amazon. You'll see a lot of Amazon, a lot of nodes on Amazon, because Amazon has a web service where you can create a node on Amazon Web Services. I'm going to take this node, so I trust this node. And it's cool because you could see the region that this node is based from. I'm going to take that and copy this, and I'm going to put it in my list of IPs here. Same port, 51235. So, after you're done, add, at least 5 in there. And then after you're done, I'm not going to save this. After you're done, you want to restart your rippled service. So I believe that that command is here. Now, if you forget the command, you can always go back to your install documentation. I don't want to restart my my rippled node, but here's the command. You would just type in this here. I'm just going to take this, but I'm going to type in so instead of status, so anytime you can type in restart. So anytime you update your rippled configuration file, you're just going to restart your rippled service. So that's it for today. If you like this video, click like and please subscribe to my channel. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next one.